Hello and welcome to the Dusty Game Society. Each month the DGS digs up a relic from the past, sharing our thoughts and struggles as we navigate these classic adventures together. And our most recent adventure had us plunging into the cyberpunk chaos of 1994 with Shadowrun on the Sega Genesis, and I'm here to tell you all about it today. So shall we jack into the Matrix and run in the shadows? Yes we shall. Well, hey there, chummer. What brings you round these parts? Looking to dive into some Shadowrun action, are ya? Well, you've come to the right spot, Ome. The name's Mr. Johnson, and I got my fingers in a lot of pies. You help me out, and I'll make sure you're taken care of. Nuyen, gear, your dead brother's eyeball, whatever you need. The shadows are always hungry for another runner, and the streets are always ready for someone with the guts to take them on. So what do you say? You in, chummer? Or are you just another ghost in the Matrix? Do you like my dramatic monologue? Yeah? Okay. Good. Let's back up a bit. Shadowrun is a tabletop RPG, sort of similar to like Dungeons and Dragons, and what makes Shadowrun different than lots of pen and paper RPGs is the setting. Shadowrun is basically like a cyberpunk world mixed with fantasy elements. Imagine a dystopian future where magic has returned and all these fantasy races like elves and dwarves and orcs and trolls are now part of a society. Now blend that with a high-tech world dominated by mega corporations and hackers and cybernetic implants and virtual realities. It's like someone took a potato masher to the Matrix, Lord of the Rings, and Blade Runner and made Shadowrun potatoes or something. I don't know. So Shadowrun started as a tabletop RPG in the late 80s, but it's branched out into other media like video games, obviously. Today we're diving into the Sega Genesis adaptation, a game that tries to capture all that cyber fantasy goodness in a 16-bit package. The world of Shadowrun is set in a near future version of Earth, where the mega corporations run everything and the average Joe is just trying to scrape by. In this game, Seattle is the primary backdrop. It's a city cloaked in perpetual rain and neon lights and corporate logos. The streets are dangerous, filled with gangs and corrupt cops and all sorts of shadowy bad guy type figures. You'll visit places like the Redmond Barrens, a lawless wasteland overrun by gangs, or the glittering towers of the Renraku Arcology, a massive corporate complex that's like a city within a city. There are also the ruins of the Penumbra district where the undead ghoul creatures lurk in the shadows. Now, I won't spoil too much of the plot because, spoilers and stuff, but the gist is you play as a chum named Joshua, who is trying to find out who killed his brother. You'll explore the streets of various areas of Seattle, take on jobs called Shadowruns to earn money and XP to level up and prepare you for the harder story missions ahead, do espionage, rescue prisoners, hack into corporate systems if you're into that sort of thing, and fight the bad guys, of course. It's a decent enough story that did a good job of keeping me interested from start to finish, with a few good twists and turns that kept me guessing. My main gripe with the story is that so much of it takes place in written expose. There's a few cutscenes, but most of the time the game just tells you what's happening in words. You can really see the game's pen and paper RPG roots, which isn't terrible, but I kind of wish there was more actually showing you what happened rather than just telling you. The game is about Joshua. It's his story. You always start as Joshua, but you can customize him to fit your playstyle. At the start, you have 3 classes to choose from as a starting place. Are you a decker? You're the kind of guy who loves hacking into systems and making corp security look like chumps? Or are you a street samurai, all about the guns and blades and cyberware, ready to take on any goon who crosses your path? Or maybe you prefer the mystical route, playing as a shaman who can summon spirits and cast spells. Each class has its own strengths and weaknesses, and the game lets you build out your character in a way that suits the playstyle that you're going for. I played as a decker, but I ended up kind of specking him out to be more like a samurai, I guess. And as you play, you'll also meet a variety of NPCs, some of whom can join your team and help you on your quest. And you can play as them too. You can switch between your characters, so you kind of get to experience the flavor of lots of different types of builds. These guys have got their own skills, and some of them have backstories, adding depth to the story of the party that you choose and giving you plenty of options for how to tackle each mission. As you can probably tell from what you've been watching on the screen, Shadowrun is an action RPG with a top-down perspective. You'll spend lots of time exploring, going from building to building, talking to NPCs and getting into fights. There are random events that come up, and sometimes you get a choice in how you react. The combat is real-time and fights break out quickly, so you'll need quick reflexes to take down enemies with your weapons and spells. Mostly you just end up mashing the attack button because fights start and end within a matter of seconds most of the time. There's also a almost like side game when it comes to the hacking. You jack into the Matrix to hack into corporate systems and databases and stuff. Really, it plays out like a turn-based RPG. You have a digital avatar and you're flying through the digital world, defeating enemies which are just kind of nodes on the network, and your computer programs are sort of like your spells and attacks. I honestly didn't enjoy this part much. I never really wrapped my head around this aspect of the game despite my character being a decker. I did it every now and then, and I never really felt like it was necessary. I never really got much reward for it, but I didn't do much of it, so maybe I'd have gotten more out of it if I actually tried. One thing that I love about the game is how it rewards exploration and experimentation. There's lots to see if you poke around, lots of side quests and stuff. Plus, the game's dialogue system does a pretty good job of letting you interact with NPCs in meaningful ways, gathering information and making decisions that can impact the story. One common criticism that I've seen about the game is that it can be pretty tough, especially if you're not familiar with how everything works. I wasn't enjoying it at all until I took the step of reading the manual, which was a big help. Your general direction through the game can be sussed out if you're paying attention, and you do have a quest log which keeps you on track, but the quest log is pretty bare bones. You just get this section in your notebook that kind of reminds you of your main task, but it doesn't give you much info. Sometimes it's enough, but sometimes it isn't. For example, I had this quest with this spirit lady where I needed to collect 3 things for a ritual. A gargoyle horn, which, okay, easy enough, I've seen gargoyles around. And then the pelt of a hellhound, okay, I found that easy enough. And then the scale of a feathered serpent, basically a dragon. And she's like, I don't know where to find them. And your quest log gives you no hints. So I guess you're expected just to walk around and explore until you stumble upon one. This is fine for the gargoyles and the hellhounds, but this dragon was in a very specific location deep in a cave that you have to reach through a maze of wilderness maps. There is no way that you'd find this guy on your own without a map. Well, I guess there is. I mean, back in the day, they didn't have internet maps to look up, but it would have taken a long time. So yeah, once I caved and consulted a guide that had a walkthrough in the maps, the game instantly became a lot more enjoyable. You still end up having to do a ton of side stuff to like level up, and you do these Shadowrun side missions so you get strong enough so you can do the next main story mission. The interface can get a bit clunky and it's easy to get lost in where you're supposed to go next, especially if you like zone out during a key piece of dialogue. But once you get the hang of it and use a few crutches like a guide to keep you on your path, there's a lot of depth to uncover. It can be frustrating at times, but nothing deal-breaking, and the sense of accomplishment that you get from overcoming the game's challenges is definitely worth the effort. And in regard to the art and sound, man, do they nail the Cyberpunk vibe. The graphics might be 16-bit, but they do an excellent job of capturing the gritty, neon-soaked world of Shadowrun. The character sprites are detailed and expressive, and the environments are packed with little touches that make the world feel alive. Tons of character and style in this game. The sound design is also great. I love the music in this game. It sets the perfect mood, blending electronic beats with eerie melodies that keep up the tension. My only gripe with the sound is that oftentimes during dialogue there's no sound. No background music or anything. It turns off when you're talking to someone. Sometimes you could be talking to someone for like a minute, which is a long time to sit there with headphones on and nothing coming out of them. Shadowrun for the Sega Genesis isn't for everyone. It's a challenging game that requires patience and a willingness to learn its mechanics, and a willingness to play through the pain and seek out outside help where needed, and a love for its unique blend of cyberpunk and fantasy. I didn't like it at first, and if I wasn't playing for the Dusty Game Society, I'd probably have quit early on. But I'm glad I didn't, because when I gave it the attention it requires, I found a rewarding experience that offers a glimpse into a richly imagined world. And there's just something about it that feels fitting for a Dusty Game Society game. The themes of economic disparity and our over-reliance on technology are more relevant today than ever. In a world where corporations wield immense power and technology permeates every aspect of our lives, Shadowrun feels kind of like a cautionary tale, you know? Like, is this our future? I don't know. Maybe. Maybe we should all be getting used to getting cyberdeck augments and talking to Mr. Johnsons for our next Shadowrun. It couldn't hurt to at least hit the ground running, you know? Alright, chummers. That's it for today's run. If you got the guts and the gear, dive into the world of Shadowrun and see if you can survive the shadows. Remember, the streets are always hungry for another runner, and the megacorps won't know what hit them. Speaking of which, let's see what the rest of the Shadowrunners of the Dusty Game Society had to say about this game, shall we? The Shibushi found it was too much for them on a first go, but might give it another try on a week-long truck trip. Yeah, that's a good way to do it, I think. Just lock yourself away with Shadowrun and kind of force yourself to play through the pain. Witch King 666 says it's incredibly ambitious but tough starting out, and they would have loved the game growing up. You really gotta persevere to get better equipment and push through. The game gets even more in-depth then with factions and heists. Yeah man, it's sort of like the onion metaphor. You know how there's layers. And also not everyone likes onions. Some psychopaths think they're gross, if you can believe that. AJP says, final thoughts already? Oh no. Oh, thanks for that, AJP. Shady started it, but then bailed after a couple hours because they were getting tired of getting yelled at by the doctor to stop dying so much, so they stopped playing and played Wild Arms instead. And you know what? That sounds like fun. I'm glad you played Wild Arms because that game looks awesome. I've never played it. Maybe that could be a future DGS Game of the Month. Stormfather found it difficult to get into but enjoyed its unique approach. They're not going to finish it, but respects the creativity and risk-taking of the devs. 7 out of 10 Nuyen. Nuyen is the money in the Shadowrun world, by the way. Sir Chewbury Gubbins, I love that name. One of the newest members of the DGS, playing on his Miu Mini Plus, excellent choice, just dipped his toes into the game and found it was brutal. Yeah, those first few hours are really a slog. I think following that guide is a good bet if you want to hit the ground running. Thanks for trying it, buddy. Lakitu was playing the game and then drove off in their car and left their MacBook on the roof and lost their MacBook and their Shadowrun save. Oh man, that's a problem. Of course, I had some helpful advice. And saved the day as usual. Phantom is another new member of the DGS and enjoyed it at the start and is looking forward to taking part in next month's game. That's good because next month's game is a doozy. And finally, Beowulf 410 beat the game. Says that the grinding is real, literally does not hold your hand at all. The Cyberpunk Indigenous mix was interesting, never seen that in a game, and they love the cutscenes. Thanks for the recommendation, Chummer. Man, hats off to you, Ome, for seeing this one through. I didn't beat the game yet, but I'm really close, and I'm definitely gonna finish it off before I start the next game of the month. Thanks for taking part and showing us what a real Dusty Gamer looks like. They look like this, apparently. The Dusty Game Society is comprised of a group of like-minded retro gaming enthusiasts. Every month we play a new Dusty game, handpicked by yours truly, myself. We play the game together, talk about it all month long, help each other out. It's like a book club for retro games. And who are these privileged few who get to play games with me? Well, that's easy. They're my patrons. The Dusty Game Society is just a perk of supporting the important work that I do. And if you're interested in throwing your hard-earned money at a stranger on the internet and playing some retro games with us and making it into the video at the end of the month, there's a link down there in the doodad below if you want to learn more. I hope you enjoyed this look at Shadowrun. I hope I've inspired you to give it a try if you haven't yet, and I hope you join us next time on the Dusty Game Society. Until then, stay dusty, my friend.